Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into what feels like a beautifully illustrated, incredibly dramatic storybook. We are walking straight into a high-stakes dinner party, where absolutely everything goes completely off script. Just imagine the tension for a second, the quiet murmurs, the clinking of glasses, and then a sudden dead halt. We're looking at a story that's honestly just as shocking today as it was back in the first century. It centers around an invitation that was supposed to be this great honor, but it turns into a profound, life-altering revelation.
So picture this, all right? You have two people sitting in the exact same room, encountering the exact same Jesus, and yet their responses absolutely could not be more different. On one hand, we've got a respected religious insider. He's done everything right, and he feels absolutely no need for grace. Then on the other hand, we have a public outcast, a woman who has done everything wrong, yet she gives everything she has in this breathtaking display of gratitude. It's a tale of really deep, profound contrasts, and by the end, it's going to ask us exactly where we stand.
Part 1. The Pharisee's Dinner. So our host for the evening is a guy named Simon. He's a highly respected Pharisee, and he's invited Jesus to a formal meal where social status is literally everything. Now, you have to understand, at a first-century banquet like this, you didn't just pull up a chair and tuck your legs under a table. Not at all. Guests reclined on these low couches, propping themselves up on their left elbows. And because of this posture, Jesus' feet would be extended behind him, completely pointing away from the table. This is super important, because it means his feet are perfectly accessible to someone approaching from the shadowy margins of the room without them ever having to reach over the food or bother the other guests. To really grasp how explosive this gets, we have to look at who we're dealing with here. We have Simon, the ultimate insider. And then we have an uninvited woman known to the town only by her reputation. Now, it was actually pretty socially normal for poorer onlookers to hover around the edges of these courtyard banquets just to listen to important teachers speak, but it was absolutely scandalous for a woman with a well-known, very public reputation in that specific town as a quote-unquote sinner to step right into the light of the party. Make no mistake, everyone in that room knew exactly who she was.
Part 2. The sinner's extravagant love.
She finds out Jesus is at this house, and she makes this terrifying choice. She steps into a room full of religious men who utterly despise her, men whose entire worldview automatically categorizes her as unclean. And she doesn't come empty-handed. First, she stands behind Jesus and just weeps. And we're not talking about quiet, polite tears here. She cries so heavily that she actually wets his dusty feet. Then she does something unthinkable. She lets down her bound hair, which was a deeply intimate and shocking thing to do in public back then, and she uses it to wipe his feet. She kisses them repeatedly, and finally she breaks open an alabaster jar, pouring an absolute fortune in perfume over them. I mean, can you imagine? This level of raw, unfiltered vulnerability would have brought the entire formal dinner to a stunning dead halt.
Which brings us to part 3, the silent judgment. The whole room just freezes. Simon is watching this entire spectacle from his couch, and his mind is just calculating and condemning. He says to himself, not out loud but to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. This one thought reveals his entire rigid theology. To him, holiness means total separation from the unclean. In Simon's mind, if Jesus were really a man of God, he would immediately recoil from this woman's touch. But the irony here, it is absolutely rich. Simon thinks Jesus is completely clueless about who is touching him, entirely missing the fact that Jesus isn't just reading the woman's heart, he is actively reading Simon's silent, judgmental thoughts from all the way across the room.
Part 4. The Parable of the Two Debtors.
Well, Jesus, of course, does not let Simon's unspoken thoughts slide. He launches into this brilliantly simple story that perfectly illustrates the math of grace. Look at this stark difference. Debtor 1 owes 500 denarii. That's roughly 2 years of wages for a standard laborer. It's an absolutely crushing, insurmountable debt. Now, debtor 2 owes 50 denarii. That's about 2 months' wages. Significant? Sure, but way, way smaller. But here is the catch. Neither of them has a single coin to pay the moneylender back. Zero. So what does the moneylender do? He completely forgives the debts of both men.
Jesus then looks at Simon and poses the seemingly simple question. Now, which of them will love him more? You can almost hear Simon feeling the trap close around him right here. He gives this very reluctant, cautious answer. I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven. And Jesus tells him, yep, you judge correctly. The principle here is laid totally bare. Massive love is just the natural, unavoidable consequence of experiencing massive forgiveness.
Part 5. The Great Reversal.
This next part is just such a cinematic moment. Jesus physically turns toward the weeping woman on the floor, but he keeps talking directly to Simon. He forces Simon to actually look at her as a human being and compare her actions to his own. And what follows is this brutal point-by-point takedown of Simon's so-called hospitality. Listen to this. A host was supposed to provide water for dusty feet. Simon gave none, but the woman provided a literal river of tears. A host was supposed to offer a kiss of greeting. Simon gave none, but the woman hasn't stopped kissing his feet. A host was supposed to offer ordinary oil for the guest's head. Simon completely omitted this, while the uninvited outcast poured out extravagantly expensive perfume. The respected host utterly failed at basic first-century manners, but the broken outcast, she provided them in glorious excess.
Jesus then gets right to the absolute core of the issue. He says her many sins have been forgiven as her great love has shown. Notice that distinction. Her tears and that expensive perfume, they were not a transaction. She wasn't trying to buy or earn her forgiveness. No way. Rather, her extravagant love is the visible proof, the unstoppable overflow of a massive forgiveness she has already experienced. Because she knows she was forgiven much, she loves much.
And that right there reveals the incredible tragedy of Simon. Jesus says, "Whoever has been forgiven little loves little." The deeper warning of this whole storybook tale is honestly chilling. Simon's problem isn't that he's a remarkably good guy with only a tiny debt. Not at all. His problem is that he is completely unaware he has any debt in the first place. The greatest obstacle to receiving grace isn't having a history of great sin. It's the arrogant conviction that you are righteous enough not to need grace at all.
Then, Jesus speaks directly to the woman, making a stunning divine claim that literally leaves the other guests murmuring. He tells her, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." And notice, he doesn't say her tears saved her or her expensive perfume saved her. No, it was her faith. That deep, incredibly vulnerable trust that brought her to his feet despite the mocking eyes of everyone in the room. That faith produced the love. And so the ruined outcast gets to go home with a profound peace. A peace that the spotless religious insider completely lacks.
As we close this explainer, this amazing narrative kind of holds a mirror up to all of us, doesn't it? It begs the question, which one are you? Are you the one sitting at the table, totally sure of your own righteousness, feeling no real need for grace and therefore loving little? Or are you the one who intimately knows your own brokenness, realizes the massive debt that's been canceled, and therefore loves much? It's the great reversal of the kingdom. The insiders are left outside, and the outsiders are welcomed right in. All right, so as we turn the page on this incredible dinner party, things are about to shift. In our next explainer, we'll be diving into the sower and the secrets. Jesus is actually going to change up his teaching style, using parables to intentionally divide his listeners. He's separating those who have ears to hear from those whose hearts remain closed. Just like this very dinner party divided Simon and the weeping woman. It's going to be fascinating, and you absolutely won't want to miss how these secrets unfold. Catch you next time.